welcome to Living Ardently. I'm your host, Adrian Giraldi, and we're not in our normal recording space. There's a little bit of changes that are going on. I might be moving soon, so you might not see that recording space as much. But today we have an amazing guest, and we're going to be talking some really good stuff and a lot that's been happening in our world, and we're going to be able to talk about this and get to know this guest a lot more. It's going to be great. So let's get into it. So today's guest is a musician, a worship leader. He's a husband and a father. He's 1/3 of Village Lights. Make sure you go follow them if you're not following them already. You can follow him at Ike Ndolo and listen to his music on Apple, Spotify, everywhere. Welcome my guest, Ike Ndolo.
What's up?
Hey man, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. We're getting by, rather.
Yeah.
I feel like we're all kind of just getting by with the pandemic and this social topic that we're kind of having to seemingly have to fight really hard for,
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely. Yeah, it's a lot happening.
Yeah, it is. So just to get a little bit about you, like how has been like you're a musician and you travel usually for the summer. So how has that been, like not having to travel much this summer?
Yeah, it's been it's been a change of pace, but honestly, it's been good for me just to be able to just kind of slow down and chill. I'm getting a chance to just be with my family, and I have an 8-month-old, and so it's been really nice to be able to just slow down. And honestly, it's hard, I think, for a lot of my musician friends, we're nobody's really traveling, and I'm lucky that I work at a church, and that's as of September. So a good portion of my income doesn't come only from traveling, but still, a good chunk is gone. So it's been adjustments financially, adjustments just with time, and but I will say, like, I'm enjoying the time home with my family, and it's been a real treat just to be able to slow down a little bit and just hang out with my son and my wife. And so,
I've been enjoying your stories with Remy, those really uncomfortable filters that you use sometimes. Those are always fun. You get a good laugh in the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we had you guys come down in your first tour with the Village Lights back in September. Oh no, what's September? February, which seems ages ago now.
Yeah, it seems like it was 9 years ago. Yeah.
So it was really awesome. I had just come back from the March for Life, and then had to organize this, and it was just like a lot of moving parts, and it was and then we had like a nightmare of setup there. But you guys made it work, and the kids loved it.
No, it was good. It was a good time, and that was really kind of our first little run as Village Lights, and something that we're excited about, and definitely the future is going to be bright. Hopefully, obviously, a lot of things are on hold. A lot of the Village Lights kind of mission is to be in community and worship together in community, and that's really hard.
Right now.
But yeah, we'll we're making it, making it through. I think everyone's just doing the best that they can, and
definitely. And it's really cool to see how you guys are working with it. Like, all the musicians have been going on to social media and making these IGTVs. You and Sarah went live the other night on Wednesday, right? And I watched that, and it was awesome. It was really good to hear you guys sing again, and it was awesome.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's hard, like, obviously, the concept of a village is connection, and it's so hard being connected, obviously, when you can't be in physical contact and spaces, and so just trying to figure out how we can do that digitally. And I'm sure everyone's getting a lot of digital, fatigue,
overload,
social media fatigue, and so we're hoping that it's a space that's honest and that's open, within your own spaces and homes, and with a hope of being able to connect again in real life,
Yeah.
But yeah.
I have some more
one.
questions about Village Lights later on, but I wanted to get a little bit of a background for those who may not know who you are. For those people, you mind giving yourself a little faith background, a journey to where you started and how you become a Catholic musician, worship leader and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm originally from Columbia, Missouri, and I my parents are from Nigeria. So my mom was 8 months pregnant with me when she moved to Missouri from Nigeria. Yeah. So and we grew up, Catholic. I grew up Catholic. I have a younger brother and a younger sister. And, we grew up going to church every single Sunday. We did all the churchy things. You know, my mom made us go to youth group and
classic,
the whole deal. Yeah. So that was kind of my whole faith journey. Has just been in the church, my whole life, and it kind of just becomes habit. I mean, at the time it become habit for me, and it was just something that we did, but I don't think it was anything that I was necessarily super committed to.
Yeah.
It wasn't really until I left high school, and after high school I did something a little unorthodox. I moved from Missouri to Arizona, Tempe, Arizona, to do this missionary training program called Youth Arise North America, and it's not around now, but back then it was a 7-month school of evangelization and mission.
Wow.
So we lived in household in community with there's 10 of us. There's kind of like this dorm type thing, and common area, and there was like 7 guys on one side and then 3 girls on the other. And then we had a married couple who were like kind of like the heads of the household and program directors, and it was great, man. We had weekly like papers due on some theological thing. Wow. We went to Notre Dame to study theology and philosophy for a month. We had internships. I was interning as a youth minister, under a youth minister in Phoenix.
Wow.
We went on mission trips to the Virgin Islands, to Mexico. It was a pretty intense program. Yeah, it was amazing.
That's crazy.
And my faith, which had been definitely more my parents' faith, my mom's faith, became mine, and I had kind of like this awakening to my faith and what it meant to me,
Yeah.
So that was pretty impactful. And then I moved back home for a little bit, went to school in Illinois for a semester, and then I moved back to Arizona and started doing ministry pretty much right away. I was working in ministry as a youth minister and initially, and then kind of started in that time when I was doing this program. I had bought my first guitar. Just because I wanted a guitar, and I took it to Arizona.
Is it the one in the back there?
No, it's long gone. I have no idea where it is. But I tried to I tried to learn how to play before this program, and then I moved, and my former roommates and whatnot, and people who were in the program, a lot of them played guitar, so I started learning how to play guitar. Okay. So I was 18 at the time, and so by the time I was doing started doing ministry, youth ministry, music was a part of that. I was starting to lead worship here and there, and then I kind of one thing led to another, and I started working as a youth minister at this church called St. Timothy's Catholic Church in Mesa, Arizona. Oh, wow. And it was where Life Teen was kind of born out of, and
Oh.
So it was there that I became really good friends with Tom Booth and Matt Maher, and I slowly they started kind of pulling me into the music side of things more. Which was like completely a God thing, like I was just trying to do ministry and be faithful, and it was God that was like kind of leading me to where, he wanted me. So that was cool thing. I remember one time I think I was doing like a conference or something, Life Team conference. It was a small conference at St. Tim's, and Tom Booth had asked me to do Mass with him, lead worship with him at Mass for one of the days, and I was there, and we were doing doing the Mass, and then in the middle or during the sign of peace, he takes my hand. He's like, I don't know why God brought you to St. Tim's, but it wasn't to do youth ministry. He's like, it was this. And I was like, in a parish that had like 3 stellar music directors,
Wow.
Tim Smith, Tom Booth, and Matt Maher, I'm like, okay. I don't think I'm needed, but God, kind of made a way, and that was like one of the hardest ministry job things I've ever had. Like in the midst of that, we had a lot of, our pastor was let go, later excommunicated. Like it was, it was a hard thing, so, but, in the midst of that, God kind of put me on a path, so yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of that, but that's awesome. I mean, God definitely, like God works like that in a lot of people's lives, and some people he works even more silently. And
absolutely.
And that's a blessing.
I
when I first saw you, it was at my first Steubenville back in 2012 in Florida.
Okay, yeah. Right.
Eighth Day was a theme.
Yeah, Eighth Day, that's right.
And man, I just remember walking in, and like there was freaking everything, like the pool noodles, the beach balls, and then I heard the band, and you guys were singing the theme. Like that was the last year they had like a theme song for the conference, and that theme song, that was like, oh my gosh, what was going on here? And I was like, for the first time, and it was during adoration when you guys were singing All the Poor and Powerless, where I officially like realized like I am like this. I am missing a lot in my life. With the combination of Chris Stefanik's talk, the men's talk, and all the things that I just didn't think I was doing that bad in.
Right.
Made me realize, in that time, that song, that's my conversion song, is what I usually say, is All the Poor and Powerless, and all the lost and lonely. I remember that's where I broke down in tears and realized like, wow, that is actually God. Either that's actually God, or everybody here is lunatics.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, that's definitely something I gotta make a decision for myself, and that's when that happened. So that song, that when you guys were leading it, so like you guys lead worship so well, and it was such a blessing. And I remember that was like, always, I mean, music is always like I feel like a communication from a soul to another soul, is what somebody once said to me. And you really get to understand somebody's hurt, somebody's pain through music. And so I think that's what drew me close to your music. You are very open with your heart in your songs, from Crook Soul to Your Table to all the songs that you've written. It's very open. You see your heart in the lyrics,
Thank you.
And, for me, even our Protestant brothers and sisters, that's their souls on like, even though they're using scripture sometimes, like their souls are on those things. And maybe sometimes their theology in the songs aren't always correct with, like in line with the Catholic, but still it's such a beautiful form of communication. So, first of all, just saying thank you to you and the musicians out there that are doing that.
For sure.
Because it's a blessing that I wish I had, that I was able to give with, but obviously that's not what I was called to do, and those who are sharing those gifts and gifted with that is an amazing thing.
Amen.
Yeah, and just to go on too, like and then the few years more, you came back to move to Florida, and then there was like 1 year where you didn't, and everybody, I remember like, it was Matt. I don't know, you were there when Matt was there, but there was just like a bunch of people like, we want Ike, and then Ike came back, and you came back, and it was awesome. It was going crazy.
Yeah.
And that was the year where I got hired to do the social media for the conference. I had graduated, and I was there to kind of do the behind the scenes. They wanted to get more people on the Snapchat and Instagram. And so I was there taking pictures and videos. I don't know if I was in your faces, like the speakers' faces, like these people are going to be annoyed by me. So here comes this kid again.
I
like,
remember. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Like,
so
and
funny.
like, and early in the morning, I remember I came up. It's like, all right, get some. The director's like, you get some of the speakers to kind of get them ready for the talks and the music. They're like, okay. I'm like, but it's like super early in the morning. I don't want to bother them,
Sure.
And I remember just coming. I was like, hey, Ike,
funny.
you want to come say something to wake people up? And you clearly were just, obviously we're still tired, right? And he's like, oh, yep. Get ready. We're getting excited. And it was something really funny. And I still have it on my phone or something like that. So.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
And then fast forward, I was like Ave. You guys came to Ave. Then I was hired. I was set to be your liaison for the university.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
The first time, the second time I wasn't there, and I heard that it went haywire over at Ave, where it's like it was outside, then when it's inside, then it's outside again. Then they finally did it inside.
I don't even remember.
but
I'm sure it was okay.
But our most recent one is when you guys came down to Lakeland, and that was awesome. And so again, like I always enjoy when I get to introduce you, Sarah, and all the other Catholic musicians to new people because of you guys' like heart. Like, for example, Sarah's Beloved, I was like sharing that out of nowhere because we were just reading the book The Life of the Beloved by Henry Nouwen, and that book was amazing, right? And it just, that song spoke it clearly. And I cried. And I was like, man.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, with your music too, like on the way up here, I was listening to some of the songs, just kind of reminiscing on the music and it's always, like I said earlier, it's clear that your music always shares your heart, right? And so for you, when you're writing your music, and even now, like when you're sharing you're sharing these stories about why Black lives in fact do matter, right? You're unapologetic. And I can see that in your music too. And so it's nothing new, Yeah.
And
I think it's just beautiful. Even all the way back to some of your first albums, your first songs that you released, it's even in there. And so can you speak on that a little bit, and as to what made you, desire to just really, the music process and writing, and what just made you feel like you need to share your heart in such a vulnerable way?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think as someone who leads worship a lot, but I'm not necessarily the best writer of worship music. And I think because I'm always trying to be as authentic as I can to where I'm at, and where I'm at, I think a lot of times I'm constantly looking, one, inside myself, trying to, express or share what's in my heart, and the struggles and the pain, and then on top of that, seeing the world around me, and trying to communicate what is happening around me as it filters through my heart, I guess you could say. And it's really the only way I know how to write music. I don't know if I know another way to write a song. And if I do write a song like that, it's flat, like
Yeah.
it doesn't really go anywhere, or it's buried somewhere. If I just hop on and try to write it, it's like, oh, I need this song, and I think I did that before this last record. I tried to do that, when it's going to, like, I just need to make a worship record, like I need another Land of the Rising Sun. I need another, whatever, that I can sing at, like, conferences and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so, I was just heading down that road, and then I just kind of stopped. I was like, I just can't. That's just not where I'm at,
Yeah.
And so I rerouted, and then I started writing for Shine, my newest record, and one, it was a lot of the music that I was listening to at the time. I which I wanted to, which I loved and wanted to dive into. It's about, in the past I've always written songs about my depravity. I've always written about how I suck, I'm a sinner, and I think this is not terrible posture, but also it can be a little damaging to the soul if you're constantly in this, state of, I don't know how to say it.
Mourning.
It's almost like mourning, or even just like this, like really intense self-deprecating thing where you're like, like I just was super in that. And Shine was a record that I wanted to make, really just the title, which is very simple, but to acknowledge the goodness in me, to acknowledge the fact that I am loved in all of my faults and failures, and that it's not just about being loved, but that I have light, inside of me, and that, and that, and to let it shine through, if, for lack of a better word. And so, so I just decided to lay it kind of all out there as much as I could, and, song form and, poetry form. And, like songs like Your Table are very direct. I share about my experiences being, a black kid growing up in very white, suburban spaces. Yeah. And, it sounds like, when I share that, I think people, especially white people, don't even really think about it. They're like, oh, I guess I never really thought about it. Like, when I walked into a church, I saw white everywhere, white in the pews, white on the cross, white on the walls, white saints and white clergy. And I think there's this kind of common thing where he's like, well, we shouldn't see color. I'm like, I mean, that's weird. Yeah. Because you should see me, like you saying that you don't see color says that you don't see me. You don't see my blackness, which I love, which took a lot of time to love, you don't see me in my God-given glory, and I've been trying to lean into that a little bit more, that I'm not depraved. I'm not some, worm, but I'm loved and trusted and noble, and I think when you are a black person, Christian, going to white churches, whether it be Catholic, Lutheran, non-denominational, whatever it is, you don't really see yourself represented. It's almost as if you are a visitor to your faith. You're just a visit. And growing up as a black person in this country, my parents probably didn't experience that because they saw black in the pews, they saw black in the clergy. I'm not sure if they saw black saints, but whatever, it was a little bit more representative for them coming from Nigeria. For myself as a kid growing up, it's everywhere, not just in the churches, but in the media, in the educational system, you know, like I didn't really have that many black teachers. I don't think I had any of my through elementary school, you know, clear till junior high, you know. And so all of these things, and I'll say this also, I'm not really the best immediate processor. As in, I can't experience something and then write a song about it right away. You know, my dad died, and it took me 3 years to write anything that processed how I was feeling about it. You know? I think I was processing the feelings, but as far as like making it concise to put into song form, it feels trite when you're trying to do it right away. Yeah. So even about this present moment, as the country is in turmoil, obviously with COVID, but also with the social unrest and the civil unrest, with the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. I need to say her name 3 times. Yes. With Ahmaud Arbery, with Eric Garner, with Mike Brown, you know, with Sandra Bland, you know, all these names, these unfortunately these sad hashtags, you know, like I don't know, you know, and on Shine there was definitely some songs, a couple of songs that kind of processed, you know, like I had already processed, but like this present moment where I'm seeing unprecedented attention to the idea that Black Lives Matter, to the idea of dismantling white supremacy and systemic racism, I am not really able to write a song about it right now. I've tried. I sat down a couple times, but nothing comes out that's real. So I'm finding myself just speaking about it. Yeah. And whether that's personally or out here, you know, in the digital world. And then maybe a song will come. But I do think that God has me where he wants me. And I'm sure I will write a song, a whole concept record about this whole thing one day, but it is not this day. I think we've got work to do, you know? Yeah.
And I think you're doing a lot of good work and sharing the important things on you've been sharing on your social media. And I think it's been beneficial for myself, like seeing some things I've seen already. Then there's things that you shared that I haven't seen yet. And, you know, somebody once told me, you know, it's my priest once told me, it's like, you need to see both sides. You know, you need to look at the farthest far to one side and farthest far the other side, and try to figure out where, like as Catholics, you know, we're a both and church, right? And so we have to be able to see and try to get people to meet here and find the directive change, right? Right. And a lot of the times people are just polarizing and polarizing and polarizing. But I love how, you know, and you've even noticed, I've noticed, like people have slowly taken the foot off the gas and just put back on cruise control already. Yeah. And, you know, it's not done. You know, there's not much that has changed yet. And we need to continue. Yeah, I mean, Breonna Taylor's like people, they haven't been arrested yet, right? And that's why we need to say her name a bit more.
Yeah, and I think what's happening right now is you're seeing facade changes. You're seeing, you know, like you're seeing companies when you go to order, I don't know, toilet paper or whatever, you know, and you'll see a little tag, you know, we are working towards, you know, making sure that racism, you know, all these big companies, Walmart, you know, Target. Yeah. And the crazy thing is that they are participators in what we call systemic racism. Yeah. You know, Walmart employs prison labor, which is, you know, because when we start talking about dismantling racism, you know, like I've experienced racism, right? Like I've been called the N-word several times in my life. I've experienced it, but at some point, I have to stop using my personal experiences of racism, because then it just allows someone to say, "Oh, I'm sorry about that," and move on. Yeah. what we're talking about is I can tell you my experiences, but and which is honestly, it can be draining because the response is, you almost sometimes don't even want a response because I'm not really telling you my pain in order for you to say, oh, I'm sorry, and move on. At the same time, my story can be countered, right, by another black person. You know, I could say that I've experienced racism, and then another black person can say, well, that he's lying. We're seeing this a lot. He's like, or not that they're lying, but I've never experienced that. And so what happens, right? So you have one person who's maybe trying to listen or not trying to listen. Yeah. They're frustrated because everyone keeps saying Black Lives Matter, and they're, you know, talking about racism, and they're getting uncomfortable, and they're getting, you know, fragile. And then all of a sudden, black person says, guys, it's okay, there is no racism, there is no systemic racism. And then what they do is they take that voice and, like, finally take this voice, see, it doesn't exist. Yeah. And so for the first week or so, you didn't see a lot of these posts because the people had their foot on the gas, they were going for it. And then slowly and surely you have all these voices, which is, it's, you know, it's, I'm not discounting, you know, another black person's experience. If they didn't experience racism, that's fine. At the same time, the number that I'm 2 times as likely to be shot by a police officer than my white friends is not up for debate. Yeah. That's real. You know, that black men are heavily incarcerated, even though we commit just as much crime as white people. Like, that's not up for debate. You know, a black child is 10 times more likely to be suspended from school, expelled from school, than his or her white classmates. That's not up for debate. This is what we're talking about. So at some point, and I haven't, you know, there's experiences that I could share and people could go, oh, or we can talk about the real issues. And what we're talking about right now, obviously in this moment, is we have a problem with policing in our country, you know. We have a problem with policing. Good officers can't even feel like they can't speak up because they'll get fired. The ones that do, they feel like they're ostracized by their coworkers, or they lose their work. We have the militarization of police departments. They're driving out in unreal body armor, assault rifles, tanks. You're like, what the heck? Using tear gas. You know, like, it's we have a problem with policing, and on top of that, the aggression and excessive force is disproportionately applied to black and brown people. So this is not necessarily something I'm sharing with you. I'm still alive and breathing. Have I been pulled over several times? Yes. I told a friend of mine, I've never been pulled over and not gotten a ticket. He was shocked. He was like, what? And he said that he's been pulled over. This is a white dude. And has never been ticketed. He's always gotten a warning. Crazy. Wow. I can't tell you how many times I've been pulled over for my tint, you know, like, or you're following this person too close, you know. And so, you know, I could share those experiences with you. But then, you know, like, at the same time, it's like, but it's not about that. Let me tell you, it is about that. It's part of the greater tapestry, right? Let me tell you about problem with policing and why this is happening. And so this is a lot of times where we're starting. Obviously, we're starting here. I didn't watch this video, not all the way through. The first time I saw it, I thought it was someone using excessive force, but you know, a black person that lived. I didn't know that George Floyd, died initially until I read this story. And I didn't go back and watch it. I didn't go back and watch him die. You know, I couldn't do it. But so we have this video that's just horrific. It's brutal. It's inhumane. It's evil. And people are calling for reform. They're calling for defunding the police, which is a reallocation of funds. Here in my own city, $95 million is what the city of Tempe was trying to allocate to the police. And so, you know, we're trying to say, no, we don't need that much money. Allocate it elsewhere. We need to, you know, because I think the issue is, and this is a huge, it's bigger than just my personal instances of racism. It's bigger than just my own the times I've been called the N-word. It's bigger than that. And we're talking about trying to fight for an equal society and an equitable society, where justice is served. And a lot of people right now, I think people on one side are just like, peace. Can we just be peaceful? And it's like, listen, the reality is if you want peace, real peace, then you have to work for justice. Yeah. The other peace is not real peace. That's what Dr. Martin Luther King calls a negative peace, an absence of tension. What we need is tension. What we need is for us to keep our foot on the gas. What we need is to make people uncomfortable and angry, and to agitate in order for there to ever be peace. Otherwise it's just false. It's a false sense of peace. Everyone just be nice, hug a cop, it'll be all okay. And it's like, that's not going to fix this. And so right now we're seeing a lot of facade things. Statues are coming down, either by force or cities are doing it. Confederate flags are coming down. NASCAR, Mississippi, which is huge. It's a big deal. The Mississippi flag, the state flag, had the Confederate stars and bars forever. And they just took it down. You know how big that is for the black people in Mississippi.
That's awesome.
But these are facade things, because that's a start. And my fear is that we're going to just stay there. We're just going to stay there. Look, the Redskins changed their name. Look, these statues came down. Look, Walmart says that they care. Who cares if they're not showing us that they care by not profiting off of black bodies from prison labor?
I just learned about that recently. That blew my mind. I mean, not just them, but like that prison labor was such a big thing.
It's huge. AT&T, Sprint, Verizon. I mean, and this is where it starts to get dangerous. Everyone wants to use Dr. Martin Luther King, right? Whenever you get a white person or someone who even a black person, doesn't matter. Someone who's like, listen, this is all blown out of proportion. You're not doing it right. Look, Dr. King. Well, first of all, Dr. King got shot, so he was killed. So clearly something was wrong there. But at the time of his death, he was the most hated man in America, and he, the Civil Rights Bill was a huge accomplishment. But what Dr. King, before he died, was working on, he had been working on equality, the idea of equality, that black people, white people, brown people are equal to one another. Okay. Yeah. But he was starting to work on equity, where essentially reparations, where the poor, black people have been shut out from opportunity and growth for generations, because after the Emancipation Proclamation, after slaves were officially freed, every year on Juneteenth, right?
Yeah, Juneteenth.
Enslaved people. There was a short period of progress, and then quickly the black codes were installed, where, especially in the South, black people were denied access. And on top of that, in the 13th Amendment that freed enslaved people, there is a clause where it says all enslaved people are free except for the incarceration, like for those who've been duly convicted of a crime, right? Yeah, absolutely. And so what happened is you see black people getting arrested in droves for any tiny minor offense. Yeah. And so you have these same people who've left slavery only to be put back into slavery because of
kids too.
Kids too, because of massive incarceration. We have a policing problem, with a massive incarceration problem here in the States. And so, and then what happened was, and you can follow that with money, right? This is the South, and her economy was built on slavery, and the loss of that workforce was devastating. And so what happened was, you see a black person loitering, you're going to jail. And now I can legally put you back on the same farm so you can make money for our economy. This is not stopped. This isn't something that stopped. And this is the facade things. It's like, fine, take down your flag, your statue. But if you're not going to give equity and reform what happened here and make reparations for what happened here with the black codes and then Jim Crow and then segregation and redlining, all these things, like if you're not going to repair that, then what you're doing is just window dressing. You know, like you're not even doing a good job of flipping your house because you haven't even fixed what's on the inside. You just added a nice door and nice shutters. Yeah. It's like, okay, we're good here. And this is where it's going to happen is people are like really excited for these things, but we need police reform. We need that yesterday. You know, we need that. Not just arresting the officers who commit these crimes, but making it impossible for other officers to do the same thing. Accountability. You know, that's what we need.
The thing that kills me the most is that it takes longer to become a barber than it does to take a cop. Like that, like, dude.
Absolutely.
Kills me. And so, like, it's even crazy. That little thing there, I mean, it's not little, that's huge, really. But it's just
huge.
Like.
It's huge.
You can.
Some places, some countries, it takes years, you know, to become a police officer. And I understand the idea of policing. But here, especially in this country, one, we don't have a uniform hiring and training system, right? With all, precincts within the country, you know. So one place might be actually fairly decent, and then one place will be terrible. And what happens is a lot of times these cops who maybe have a lot of complaints or have done this, that, or the other thing can just go to another police department and get hired again. They just get passed. They just go wherever they want. It's dangerous stuff. And I mean, don't even get me started on the history of policing, in our country. And really it's just a continuation of slave catchers becoming cops. But, that's a whole nother... It's all kind of in the same amalgamation of what we talk. The big thing which we talk about is systemic racism. It's in our systems and it's in the very bones of our thing. And I read this somewhere, and I hate to steal this. I didn't come up with this, but a system can be racist without race. A system can be racist without racists. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So, like, our system can run because it was set up this way. And it doesn't even have to have racists running it. It just is racist in its system. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's this quote from a similar thing. It was really good. I have to find it, but it was alluding to what you were saying. I don't know if you're talking about the same article that I'm referring to. I want to refer to real quick, but let me pull it up. An allegation of systemic racism requires us to make no claim whatsoever about the formal motives or beliefs of the individual judges or police officers. It is sufficient to merely identify policies and structures that inherently tend to cause or reinforce unjust racial disparities.
Right. Absolutely.
And he goes on there, and it's really great.
Right. And it doesn't need, for instance, there was 4 police officers, right, who were responsible a part of George Floyd's death. Those 4 police officers might have been thinking very differently. Obviously, the man who murdered George Floyd, was thinking maybe differently than the person who's holding him or the person who's what. Who knows? Who knows? But the reality is because of that system, if even if one of them had an inkling to say, hey, this is wrong, how the system is built penalizes that person. I don't know if that's the case. Who knows? I think that, but I'm saying the system is not in favor. Does that make sense? Yeah. Of for instance, even a cop going against what those other 3 cops was like, hey, we got to stop this, that's all it would have I've seen a couple of people like, well, what about the people standing around and and taking a video of it? And I was like, God, like, the girl who took a video was I think it was a 17-year-old black woman, what would you want her to do against 4 men with guns? Like there's always like false bravado. I was like, I would have stopped him. I was like, would you? Like, in order to, and you would have been shot?
Yeah. I mean, the one that was pushing them off was threatening to.
Right. So like in today's age, it's hard, like I don't really promote, I don't like to promote videos of black men and women being killed at the hands of police officers. I just I would hate for my demeaning death to be displayed forever, for my son to grow up and watch. That's a real terrible thing. So I don't. At the same time, these videos that are being captured are helping in a sense that people are seeing the brutality, but they're not helping because nothing has changed. Nothing is changing. And so finally, I feel like in our society, in this moment, it feels like people are starting to pay more attention. But like you said, and here's the thing, this is from Ibram X. Kendi. When he talks about our feelings, like right now, there's a lot of feeling and emotion, like I feel bad about racism. Mm-hmm. So you do all the things, to assuage that feeling, and then what happens is once you march enough, once you give enough to ease your feelings, then you can just go back to your regularly scheduled program. Yeah. Meanwhile, the work is not done. That's dangerous. So dangerous, because this moment is not about feeling good. Mm-hmm. I have a friend, a white friend who's like, man, I'm all in because I'm losing friends, I'm losing family, but I can't just be quiet anymore. I can't be silent. Like I have to keep going, mm-hmm. and I'm all in, nice. and I did say this, I think I typed this out, and it's hard for me. One, I'm not really, I play music, mm-hmm. I'm a musician. I lead worship, I sing songs, and, mm-hmm. It's hard for me to speak, like speaking in front of people, even like getting on my Instagram and doing the talking head thing and speak. I hate that. I hate it. Yeah. But I am realizing too, I just got a message today. Someone, I don't think this was a person of good intent, mm-hmm. but he messaged me and is like, are all white people are there any white people that aren't racist? And I'm like, okay. Yeah. And he goes on to say, like, I'm not trying to lead. I'm just trying to, I just want to know. I'm like, okay, well, there's a lot of other people who are getting it, so I'm not sure why you're confused. Yeah. And I think he was alluding to the fact that I do repost a lot of things. Yeah. Of course I do, because there's a lot of smart women and men, especially women, especially black women, mm-hmm. who know way more and are way more articulate. And so I'm going to repost because I'm like, yes, this is what I want to say, but I'm not smart enough. Yeah. Here you go. Listen to this black woman, but I also realized too that I need to, as well, have people hear the words come out of my mouth. Yep. Black lives matter. Mm-hmm. Right. Period. That's it. Black lives matter. Right. Full stop. And we need to dismantle white supremacy. We need to dismantle systemic racism. Example of white supremacy. It's subtle. You don't even know it's there. But we were at church, and this priest was talking about the resurrection and talking about our glorified bodies, right? Mm-hmm. And it was a Vietnamese priest, and he made a joke. He's like, I just hope my glorified body will be beautiful, it'll be tall, white skin, blonde hair, blue eyes, and everyone's laughing, right? Wow. And we leave mass, and my wife, who's white, didn't even notice. And I was like, "Did you notice he said that?" She's like, "Oh my gosh." I'm like, imagine how destructive that is to a little brown, black kid.
Wow.
Who hears that the idea of perfection, the idea of beauty is white, blonde hair, blue eyes. You know how destructive that is? That's trauma. That's real trauma. And you either learn real fast to hate yourself, to wonder why you were given this black and brown skin, this kinky hair. You wonder that, or you leave, right? You leave. And that was where I was before, I had my conversion. I was really thinking about, why do I stay Catholic? I was embarrassed to be Catholic when I was in high school. I was embarrassed, like I remember one time I was, our church was, in the downtown area, and I was waiting. I was driving at the time, and I was waiting for my sister to get out of Sunday school. Okay. So I'm outside the Sunday school building. It's right next to our church. And I look down the street and I see this dude walking. I'm like, oh no. And it was one of my friends from school. His name is Scotty. And Scotty comes walking up, and I'm just standing out there. It was too late. He already saw me, Yeah. And he sees me, and he gets up to me. He's like, what up? I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, this is my church. And I'm waiting for my sister to get out of Sunday school. He's like, and literally he just shakes his head, like, and keeps walking. He's like, all right, I'll see you on Monday. I'll see you tomorrow.
Interesting.
And we're sitting at the table. We're sitting at our lunch table, right? I'm nervous, man. I almost skipped lunch. This is how, I was nervous. I was ashamed. Mm-hmm. I was nervous, right? And we're sitting there, and Scotty keeps looking at me like soft little grin. And I'm like, oh God.
Oh, no.
And then and then all of a sudden he's like, I saw Ike yesterday. He was at a white church. And I remember just being like, here it is. Wow. And I thought my friends, who were all black, sitting at this table, we all play football together and whatever. And I thought they were just going to go in on me. Mm-hmm. And one of the dudes, Josh, who's kind of like, he's like the main voice in our group. Yeah. He was like, shut up, Scotty. Just because you don't go to church doesn't mean you should make fun of Ike, And I was shocked, because I thought they were ready to go in on me.
Wow.
And awesome. I was really grateful to Josh at that time. But I remember thinking, later on as I reflect, right? I'm talking about years and years later, because I don't process things really well in the moment, especially as an 18-year-old kid. But I was like, I was terrified, bro. I was terrified. And I was ashamed. I was ashamed of going in this white church, And I was just always thinking, like, how come we couldn't just go to a black church? All my, my friends who go to church who are black, it seems like they're having a good time at their church. Our church is boring, And so I was ashamed of it, and a lot of it, I didn't feel like I belonged, and my church wasn't bad. Like, we grew up in a small town in Missouri. Mm-hmm. It wasn't terrible. I don't necessarily even remember a lot of overt racist things, that happened. My mom does, she tells a lot of stories about racism that she experienced in the church. Yeah. But when you're a kid, you're not really noticing it that much there. You're just noticing the fact that you feel like you don't belong. Yeah. And I felt like literally even though we went to this church every Sunday, to the same mass, sat in the same space. It was always I always felt like we were on the outside. Always. And this is a form of white supremacy. Going back to that Vietnamese priest, that's real damage that you do to a young black or brown person of color sitting in your even an older person like myself. It hit me, man. Like, that hit me like it was like a punch to my heart. And I thought, thank God my niece isn't here, thank God my nephew isn't here. I was, it feels scary in a sense, and that this man who isn't even white. This is how insidious white supremacy is.
Yeah.
He's not white. He was Vietnamese. But the idea that whiteness is the norm, right? Yeah, the epitome that white features and white things are the what we should aspire to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that mentality is white supremacy.
Yeah,
it is white supremacy, and that is insidious. I don't know. That is, how do we dismantle that? I know that we could obviously do that within our homes. We're a biracial family. My wife is white. I'm black.
Yeah.
My son is biracial. Depending on how light or dark he gets when he's older, we don't call President Obama our first biracial president. We call him our first black president.
Yeah.
And so, like even in our home, starting with the things that we let our son watch, to make sure he knows, like, whiteness is not the standard.
Yeah.
That, and that who you are is beautiful, and you need to see that represented in what we put on the walls, what we let you watch, those kind of things. But then he'll go to school, then he'll go to church, and he'll go to school, and he'll only study about black people one time a year in February.
Yeah.
And it's mostly about enslaved people. He'll go to church, and he'll only learn about white Jesus, white Mary, white saints.
Yeah.
This is a problem. That's white supremacy.
It's even in the Philippines. I mean, if I just real quick, it like,
yes,
they in the Philippines, like it's a economic thing. Like if you're darker skinned, you're poor.
Come on, speak that word.
If like all the people who are richer would get whitening soap to go paler.
Come on,
and like
come on.
It's like you're trying to, it's just like those little things. And I grew up thinking that, and like even myself, even though the people I looked up to were all black. Like Will Smith, growing up, Will Smith was my favorite actor. Michael Jordan, based basketball player, Dwayne Wade, and then even when it came to the church, you became my favorite musician for a while. Like it's like everybody I look up to were black, but then still in that back of my head, it's in there. It's in me.
Yes, it's in me.
Right.
It's in me. I remember. My it's in Nigeria too. We had skin whitener.
Oh, really?
Like a cream that you would rub on. Supposed to lighten your skin. You see this a lot in Latin American countries. You see this a lot where it's colorism is a big deal. That is white supremacy. That lighter is best, and that dark is not. Dark is not good, and that is dangerous, man. That is dangerous. Dangerous stuff. And it's white supremacy has not just been perpetuated in our country, but in our world. We see it globally. We see it everywhere, man. It's everywhere. And so the idea that your dark skin is not valued, that it's seen as lesser than, that is white supremacy, and that's something that will take so long. And the things that prevent that are things like white fragility, where even saying white person feels like an indictment to white people, and they can't handle it. And so, when we talk about, when we say Black Lives Matter, it's like all lives matter. It's like, guys, if you can't say this simple phrase, and I don't even want to get into organizations, I just think that's a red herring, and it's just a major distraction, but whatever. Yeah. But if you can't just say the phrase with intent, with real intent, all lives do not matter. That is the bottom line. They don't.
Yeah.
And we have a long way to go.
Yeah.
When we're talking about systemic racism, we have policies that need to be changed. We have laws that need to go away. We have practices that need to go away. And it's all tied in with white supremacy, right? Because if darker skin is penalized just for being darker skin, well, and if that's taught and ingrained, and then that person who it's taught and ingrained to say that they don't even, that they're, you know, like, I'm not even saying that they're overtly racist, but the idea of white supremacy that permeates through this whole world and that is believed everywhere, right? If that has crept in, and it has, to 1, 2, 3 police officers, 1 or 2 or 3 healthcare workers, doctors. Black women are 3 times more likely to die in childbirth in this country. In this country. My sister, who has her doctorate in physical therapy, she's a DPT, said that in her medical class, one of her medical classes, she was taught, the guest lecturer taught that black people don't feel pain as much as other people. Yes, this is a thing that was taught.
Wow.
In her class. That's a thing. That is a thing. I mean, we've got that's why, you know, like, you know, when this person messaged me, he was saying, you know, it's like, well, you've just been posting these things for weeks and weeks. I'm like, listen, I should have been posting it before, and I have been, you know, like, you know, I go to Facebook and I post these things, and then it gets too much because, you know, I just can't, it's hard to handle trolls, you know, and then you go to Twitter, and then that gets too much, you know, on Instagram, you know, I'm just posting pictures of my babies, and then the revolution happens. I'm like, well, it's back to where I was before, you know, and I've been doing it for 5 years, but like, we have so much work to do to dismantle this. So much. It's literally the air we breathe. Yeah. But
what are you,
well, you know,
what are your so to kind of like help move people forward, what are some tips that you can like you would offer people, like where to start? I mean, like people have started, right? But like at this part, like how to keep going, rather, you know? Sure.
I think it's important to never stop listening. I think it's also important to being okay to being wrong, to be wrong. Does that make sense? Like, people are so afraid, and granted, I get it, you know, nobody wants to be canceled, right? You know, like cancel culture, you know, I don't know if I have, you know, too strong of an opinion on it or not. Like, you know, people are like, well, this person's canceled, man. Okay, but are they racist? You know, like, I don't know why you're trying to get me to care about this, you know, care about that. Like, you know, your repercussions are repercussions. But at the same time, you know, for instance, Louis Giglio and Lecrae and another pastor, they did this kind of like round table thing. I just watched the one clip, and Louis kind of talked about, you know, he's like, people have a hard time with white privilege, that word. Maybe we can change it to white blessing. And you know, people erupted, and rightly so. It was really dumb. It was dumb, you know, like, and he got on. He did another video and he apologized. I didn't watch the whole video, but he did sincerely apologize, you know, for what he said. You know, I don't hear people talking about Louis that much anymore. You know, like, you know, I've been off Twitter for a little bit, then I got back on, and you know, Twitter is you know, it's a funny beast.
I'm off
it can
of that
be
place.
Hilarious. It can be hilarious, and it can be, you know, enraging and all the things. And it's, you know, to me, it's kind of a beautiful mess. But you know, like, you know, he kind of fell out of the news cycle, and I think why, or out of the things, because it's like, listen, man, apologize and move on. You were trying your best, but you did not hit the mark. So don't be afraid to try. You know, like, don't be afraid to try. You can affect change, especially white people being allies in your own spaces. Yeah, you know, places that people of color, black people, are not necessarily privy to. You have a responsibility and to speak up in those spaces, to confront your uncle who's racist, to confront that friend who won't stop saying these things. You know, like, in those spaces, you know, generally racist people who have latent racist things aren't, saying those things in front of black and brown people. They still are, but not necessarily. When we talk about the systemic, know your local government. Get to know who your reps are. Get to know what laws. Get to know. When we talk about defunding the police, people are like, "Well, we need police officers." We're not saying abolish. I mean, some people are saying abolish the police.
Yeah, I saw that.
Defunding the police. Defunding the police. And listen, you say abolish the police, and I'll just be straight up honest with you. If you're going to replace it with a better system, and this is what I think defunding the police is. So you're taking bloated police salaries. How come we were able to get? How come when protests started, police officers had riot gear, helmets, everything, tear gas ready? But when coronavirus hit, we didn't have PPE for any of our doctors. We didn't have masks. That's $15 as opposed to $500 for all that equipment that these militarized police officers are wearing.
That's a good point.
So look at your city's budget. Are they allocating tons of money to police officers where they could be going to social programs? What's happened is, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but what's happened is we see something that's wrong, and instead of trying to find out the root cause, we just want to beat it out of existence. And so we get a hammer, and we use a hammer for every single thing, and that's the police, right? So get to understand what it means to defund the police, and learn. I think that's the thing. Continue to learn, and don't be afraid to learn from everyone. There's this concept, I think, among Catholics and Christians is like, well, Black Lives Matter, so I'm not going to listen to anything that they say. Or this person, I'm not going to listen to anything they say. It's like, do you know how un-Christian that is? Do you know how un-gospel that is?
Right.
Like, oh, this person smells of the world, so I won't even soil myself. Come on, get over yourself. That's a big thing. Get over yourself. Get used to being uncomfortable. My wife said that we did I don't remember. We did like a live something or another. She ended as like, get comfortable being uncomfortable. I'm sure that's not something that we made up, obviously, but that's, it's like, that's true. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. And boldness. And so I would say learning is huge. Just learn and be educated. And it doesn't necessarily have to come from your preferred news cycle. It doesn't have to come from Fox. It doesn't have to come from CNN. You can literally just do a Google search about hey, what's my local city? What's my city? What are they spending money on?
Right.
And if you see that there's a massive disparity between social programs and law enforcement, you should speak up. That's a big deal. Donate to things like Equal Justice Initiative and NAACP and Colors of Change. They're doing great work on the ground, and to try to dismantle, and as much as they can, to dismantle systemic racism. White supremacy, for instance, is perpetuated also too. When a black girl goes to Target, all they see is probably mostly white dolls. And they'll probably either get a white doll or they'll get the one black doll. I challenge you, in an all-white family, get some black baby dolls. Why? Because you should. Because it needs to be just that idea that whiteness is the standard needs to start to be chipped away.
Right.
We haven't done that yet.
Right.
We haven't done that yet.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes, we can talk about equality, but is it ingrained in us? Kids know this to a certain extent. Babies know this. Kids know this. They just kind of see people. And it's not about the idea of being colorblind. I'm not trying to create a colorblind society, but a society where you can, white kids can celebrate blackness, and you can do that,
right.
Yeah. I hope that made sense.
No, yeah, it definitely did, and I love
education
that.
Education is big. Don't stop learning.
It's simple to do. They're not hard. There are things that can there's so many. I mean, yeah, you can get resource overload. There's a ton of resources out there.
Sure.
What I've been doing is saving them. It's I'll read. There's a probably
Yeah.
like 12 in my saved list right now that I need to go back and read.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
last night I had an hour and I watched
Yeah.
use 30 of that hour to kind of
Yeah.
read what the things that I saved, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And pace yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like, make sure that you're taking care of yourself as well, and pace yourself. And it can be overwhelming, but don't burn out, you know, don't burn out. Especially after the rage and the anger and the frustration and the feelings have moved on. It needs to be a dispassionate march towards equality and equity. And that is, the equity is huge, and it's not based on your feelings. It's not based on necessarily passion. It's just it needs to be just a steady march. And I think what has happened in this country is we've done a lot of facade things. You know, most people don't go around saying the N-word or saying racial epithets to people. You know, we've got a couple black shows. You know, like there's like facade things, but we haven't really fixed the systems. You know, and those systems: healthcare, education, criminal justice. Like we have to dig politics as well. We have to dig deep into those systems and start to pick apart. And representation when it comes to white supremacy is huge. You know, within the church, you know, like just because you don't have a predominantly black parish doesn't mean you can't have black saints up on your walls, you know, as statues. You know, like it's a little nuts that you know, like they're just kind of maybe marched out every once in a while during, you know, 1 month, you know, in a year, you know. Let them be a permanent fixture in your white spaces. Blackness, aside from your entertainment and your taking from, which is a whole other thing, you know, let them be in places of prominence.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I appreciate everything you've said today. It's huge, and I think it's important for, like you said, to keep listening. And hopefully when you see this, you start listening to the podcast, that you've made it all the way through, that you didn't get angry and stop at some point. Because before we started recording, I told Ike, let's make this as uncomfortable as it needs to be, you know? Not intentionally like to make people, but to call it out, you know, to make it not all butterflies and perfect and all, you know, cutesy and like, oh yeah, like you said, hug a cop and it's good. Like we're trying to continue to have traction and move forward, you know. And so what is the last thing I like to ask people, what is your message to those to your black brothers and sisters out there who might be listening? What is your message to them, how to keep on their hopes up in this time?
You know, you are beautiful, you are valued, you are welcome, you are loved, you are celebrated. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Breathe. Take a break. Take a bath. Remember that you're a child of God. You know, and if you haven't felt that, if that hasn't been communicated maybe by your faith experience, I'm with you and I get it. Take a moment and breathe and know that is truth and that's reality.
Praise God. And the last thing I usually like to ask people who will come on the show is to share some Instagram accounts, but it doesn't have to be. You can share people who like maybe talks that you want people to listen to.
Sure.
Resources to read.
Yeah, for sure. I would say, gosh, that's a good one because there's some people. There is a black woman. She's a mental health advocate. She's Catholic, and her name is Chanel.
Chanel Shaw.
Her Instagram it's her last name's not here, but it's Chanel_K is her Instagram handle.
I went to school with her.
So, oh great. Yeah. Really?
Yeah, I think
nice.
I think if you're thinking about who I'm thinking about, We went to she went to Ave with me for 1 year.
Okay.
Before she graduated.
Okay, great. Another person, Patricia A. Taylor. Patricia A. Taylor, and it's Patricia _A_ Taylor. And then Austin Channing Brown. It's just Austin Channing. Yeah, she's she wrote a book called I'm Still Here, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's see, Ibram X Kendi, and yeah, that I think that's it.
Those are great. Yeah.
Let me see.
I will put all those shout outs there are going to be linked in the description below, their
Great.
handles, and if they're not clickable, you can just type their names into Instagram and you'll be able to find them. Great. Thanks, Ike, for coming in and sharing sharing what you shared with us today. And I think it's really good for everybody to hear, for those who might not have heard this yet, you know. So I appreciate the good work that you're doing. Please continue.
Thanks, man.
And know that you have my support. You know, you have the support of many other people that I know that we've been talking about. And we're praying for change, and we're going to continue to work and continue that traction and going forward. If they want to follow you, they can follow you at Ike Ndolo, right?
Yep. That's my handle everywhere.
Everywhere on YouTube too, and
YouTube. Yep. All the places.
Spotify, yeah. If you don't know how to spell it, just look at the title as IKE and then NDOLO.
Yep.
Cool. If you want to follow Living Ardently, it's at Living Ardently. Follow my personal account at It's Only Adrian. If you're listening to the podcast and you want to watch the video portion of it, it is available on YouTube. You can go like and subscribe there. Under Living Ardently Podcast, and we're everywhere else. Email us, do all that good stuff. Email livingardentlypod@gmail.com, and everything you need to know is in the description below. Appreciate you guys listening. Thank you again, and let's move forward, y'all. Let's keep going. Let's keep our foot on the pedal and keep going forward. Thanks again, Ike. God bless, and until next time, keep living ardently. Peace. That's it.